So the viewers who are joining us on the Federal right now, good evening and hello and a warm welcome again on this Budget Day live coverage of the Federal Union Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has laid out the Union budget this morning, and she has basically focused on the main priorities, the 7 main priorities of the budget: inclusive development, infrastructure and investment, unleashing the potential, youth power, green growth, financial sector. Then she has focused a lot on the agri sector. She's given some relief to the middle class in the form of tax slabs. But the question which everybody is asking, she has even stuck to the fiscal deficit roadmap, saying that she's stuck to the target of 5.9%. But the question which everyone is asking is, how logical is this budget? Is it a mix of populism and prudence? And how does one really rate this budget when it comes to the concerns of the the common man and the business community? So we are going to talk about all these aspects, and I'm joined by a special panel. People are still joining me. I have with me BJP spokesperson Vineet Goenka. Good evening, Vineet. Always a pleasure having you on the program. Former Congress spokesperson Sanjay Jha, who has himself been a banker. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for joining. Then I have with me Dr. Akash Deep Muni, who is an Aam Aadmi Party supporter. Thank you, Dr. Muni. Siddharth Sharma, a political commentator, has also joined in. Dr. Sarthi Acharya from the Institute of Human Development and Studies. Thank you so much, Dr. Acharya, for joining. But let me begin by Sanjay, because Sanjay would be giving in a lot of information as to what has been the political reaction over Nirmala Sitharaman's budget. And Sanjay has to leave, so I thought I'll begin the debate with him. Yes, Sanjay, over to you.
Neelu, great to be with you on the program, and a big hello and good evening to all the fellow panelists. Unfortunately, I may have to go a little earlier, but I have a lot of respect for the views that I'm sure will be very enlightening for your audience. I want to make my answer very brief, Neelu. First and foremost, I would have liked it if Nirmala Sitharaman today would have acknowledged that the government was not fair to the farmers. I go back to the promise made to double the agriculture income for the farmers in 2017. That was supposed to come to an end in 2022. And guess what? Forget doubling the incomes. If you look at the real incomes, the farmers today are probably worse off if they haven't already experienced negative growth over 2018-19 figures. So clearly the government has been disingenuous with the promises it made, number one. Number two, this is not an inclusive budget. I mean, you have a situation today after the pandemic where there has been a reverse migration. People left the urban cities where they came to get a job, and they went back to their villages, right? Because the cities were under the great lockdown. And you have a situation today where Manrega payments have not been made. Manrega payments are in arrears. The number of households covered have been reduced. And I can give you the figures if you give me a couple of minutes. Number two, even the fact that in this budget, the allocation is actually down in nominal terms. So you're not even accounting for inflation. You're actually seeing a downsizing of the Manrega budget at a time when everyone who follows the social structure of a society, the inequality problem, said that this was a time for the government to bring a scheme like Manrega for the urban poor. Because end of day, that brings me to the third point. The big problem with the Indian economy is inequality. And I'm not going to quote Oxfam, because Vineet will say Oxfam is a foreign conspiracy. Or somebody from the BJP will say, this is concocted like the Heidelberg report, which has brought Mr. Adani to his knees today, as you can see, and whether it's a BBC documentary. But the truth is, let's quote the NSSO survey. Let's quote the PLS survey. What does it tell you? It tells you that 82% of the workers in India, you're talking about rural agricultural workers, you're talking about construction workers in the cities and so on. Today, 82% of them are actually worse off than they were 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, these are certain factual realities. Now, you can't try and, kind of bludgeon them over by saying, I have a cylinder scheme, or I give, some kind of a PM Awas Yojana, and we know that.
Are you trying to say that the budget has not addressed the immediate concerns of the common man?
Absolutely.
And it's talking about a long-term vision statement.
Absolutely. I'll tell you why that's relevant, Neelu, and I would love to hear the views of Ashutosh, Akash, Siddharji, Sarthi, and Vineet as well. But I will definitely watch the recording later. But the truth of life is that you are seeing a phase under Mr. Modi of jobless growth. Over the course of the last 8 years, I think Mr. Modi's legacy will be the destruction of the demographic dividend story of India. I think, the what is the story today, right? That India is a young country. China is aging. Are you taking advantage of that productive capacity? The answer is clearly no. And the point that we cannot ignore, unemployment is at around 8.3% in December. It means that roughly, I mean, you're talking about 80, 90 million of young people in this country without jobs. I mean, this is serious. And don't forget, Neelu, that at the time of the pandemic, and I'm going to quote to you CMIE data, the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, that once again, I'm sure Vineet is going to trash. I'm trying to preempt Vineet as much as I can. And sorry, Vineet, for that. But the truth is that you guys trashed the CMIE report. But so let me quote to you the fact that end of day, did not the urban Indians lose around 10 million jobs? What not 230 million people pushed into poverty, becoming the new, I call them as the new poor because they went below the poverty line? Can you deny the fact that at the end of the day today, the coverage of people who are, I think, desperately in need of some kind of a minimum wage, or I would even say that your government should have surprised everybody by doing a nyay that Rahul Gandhi and the Congress actually espoused in 2019. This is the time when you need to boost consumption and demand in India. And I can tell you something, Neelu, that end of day, why is private sector not investing? You see, I'm trying to cover as much as I can before I go. Private sector is not investing because at the end of the day, they have to also see demand. And you cannot have demand until you have people with income who are spending. Now, you see today, the people who had incomes before, the middle class has shrunk. Their income has shrunk. They lost their jobs. So where are they going to have income to spend? And you are not providing enough incentive to people to spend by providing them income. Give you an example. Look at the middle class today. Middle class lost jobs. Middle class is paying through its nose on fuel duties and fuel taxes. We all know that the price of fuel that they claimed went very high when the Ukraine war happened. Today, the price of fuel has come down substantially. Have the fuel prices come down?
Sanjay, from what you're saying, it looks like a very anti-poor budget,
anti-middle class as well.
Anti-middle class as well. But does it cater the concerns of the corporates? Because I've heard many people saying that this is a very corporate-friendly budget. So would you agree with that?
Well, let me tell you, the hope that Vineet's party has is that because you are having a lot of infrastructure spend, that it will crowd in private investment. But look at the fact that the private investment is really not coming, despite the fact that they gave a massive 1,45,000 crore tax concession in 2019. There are no jobs. Private sector investment hasn't gone up. So the $1 million question remains that it hasn't happened. And I think the principal thing that we cannot ignore today, and I want to leave it for your panelists because they're all eminent people, is why is Gautam Adani's group hijacked the budget day today? Complete lack of corporate governance. You have an FPO which is subscribed yesterday, which is tanked 30%. It's unheard of. You have Credit Suisse, which says that we don't want to even touch the Adani stock because we believe it is as good as a junk bond for a collateral. What kind of a signal are we sent already to the foreign investors that this country is running like a banana republic? And we all know, and I'm sorry I've got to make this political point, that Mr. Adani's meteoric rise, 85% of his growth happened in the last 3 years, has happened on account of political patronage. I'm not going to name who it is because you already know who's behind his success story.
Okay, so it's neither a corporate-friendly budget, it's neither an anti-poor or an anti-middle class. It's basically an anti-middle class budget. So Dr. Ashutosh Verma from Samajwadi Party has joined us. Thank you, Dr. Verma, for joining. But where is this budget heading to? If it's not meant for the poor, it's not meant for the farmers, it's not meant for the middle class, it's neither meant for the corporates. So what is the long-term goal of this budget? Is this budget a piece of a trash, what we are seeing this year?
So I will not call him as a piece of trash, but I gave him the term, it's just a maze of words. how this BJP government has used. They given no relief to the middle class person, neither to the peasants, neither to the lower class. And the most popular way they are saying that's the new tax regime. I'm very sorry, but there are a lot of economics. They are talking in today's TV debates that they have given a new relief of 7 lakhs. I have just explained why. How 7 lakhs? Because initially we were getting a relief at the 5 lakhs rupees. Then we are getting about rebate of about 1.5 lakhs in ATC. Then we were getting a rebate of about 50,000 rupees on the NPS. So cumulatively it was 7 lakhs. So either you hold the hair from this way or you hold the hair from this way. It means the same. So it's just a maze of words what we are seeing right now, and BJP is very expert on all these things. Even I can't expect anything much more better than BJP on these policies. Then they are saying that they have given a relief to a middle class family. I'm sorry, I too am a middle class family. I have taken several loans for my home. I have taken several loans for my car. Definitely, the people are taking loans for their studies for their children. Has they given a single point rebate in the repo rate? No. Even in the COVID areas, after COVID areas, they have said that you are giving a time to repay your EMIs, not a rebate at that time. So it is again a jolt to us. It's very pathetic that government is not thinking about this. Then we come about, we were thinking something about old pension scheme, which is a long talk. This is our vision for Samajwadi Party to implement the old pension scheme. And the employees are still waiting. Will give either old pension scheme, revive old pension scheme, or they will give something new way to relieve them. But no word for them also. Lots state and central employees got decided with this. Then about Kisan Samman Nidhi, you are saying that's a farmer friendly. I am sorry, how could we? You are creating a regular increment in petrol and diesels that the transport are now too costly, but you have not even improved a single rupee in the Kisan Samman Nidhi. So what you have given? You have not talked about the MSP, and this is a total jolt because about a year ago, just the Prime Minister has said that we are rolling back the three farmer laws, and we will think something about the farmers of the India, and they always say that they are the backbone of the country. A single motto fight is there of the MSP. The whole budget session, this word we can't we are just harshly said that we are not even heard a single word about the MSP. No MSP, no level price, no GST decrement on the farmers procurement of their instrument. So I think it's a huge jolt to the middle class and lower class. If we talk about the youngsters, if they see, so inflammation is too high, and as the earliest spokesperson has said that about that what we're saying unemployment. So when unemployment is there, you have to either create a new job or you should do something to create a new job. Instead of that, you are giving some handsome amount of monies to the unemployed. So what you are making is the visionary. You are making a huge chunk of unemployed India's, and the youth are just wearing. Then you are taking that you are a Rashbhak Sarkar. You have given a budget of railways, but not a single point on the defense budget. What about a defense budget? I was thinking that education. I can't expect Bharatiya Janata Party to spend more on education. But what you have done, you have decremented the education budget from 2.64% to 2.5%. Means you are not interested in educating the India. Definitely, you are giving some of the employment.
Basically,
And same in the health. You
Right.
you have decremented the health budget from 2.2% to 1.98%.
Okay, so Dr.
So
Verma,
this is
I'll
a
come back to
horrible.
you again. Yeah, I'll come back to you again, but you've specified it very clearly that the social sector allocations have been dismal, including the defense sector. I'll come to Dr. Sarthi Acharya, and then I'm going to come to Siddharth and Vineet. Vineet, I'll come to you last because you'll have loads to answer. So let me go to Dr. Acharya first. Dr. Acharya, how would you really see this budget? Does it look like a populist budget? Or does it look like a prudent budget or a mix of both? How would you really rate this budget?
Niru, to begin with, I must say budgets are not statements of any kind of a long-term structural change or anything. They're year-to-year changes, all right? But they must be on a path where your long-term goal, whether it is sustainable development goal, full employment, 5 trillion economy, etc., these have to be met. Now, if you look at this budget, let me quickly say, it's more of the same. We've been talking about green growth for the last, 10 years, 15 years?
Yes.
Since Rio, we're talking about more of the same. We're talking about jobs. Where have we invested? Traditional jobs. So more of the same, not shifting the jobs from the traditional sectors to modern, but modernizing the traditional jobs, which means high elasticity. That means low incomes, frankly.
Right.
Youth, we are talking about skilling, but frankly speaking, if you look at it last 10 years, we have scrapped programs of youth skilling at least twice.
Absolutely.
When I came back from the United Nations, the first job I was given was to evaluate a program on skills. And we found it was absolutely trashed, and the government then trashed it. We are still talking about youth. Then we are talking about CapEx. We've been doing CapEx, rather good, I must say. But it's more of the same.
Right.
We haven't talked about what CapEx are we talking about. Are we talking about bridges? Are we talking about roads? Are we talking about ports? What? This is yet to be done. Then more of digitization we are talking about, which is happening for the last several years. We are talking the same thing with MSMEs. The only major differences I see are diversification in agriculture. To what extent it happens, we've yet to see. But for the first time, they are talking about diversification of agriculture into a new direction. And the other thing which I find very useful is that IITs and 100 labs are to be given money
for the 5G applications.
For applications and some R&D. But I have serious challenges as far as this budget is concerned. That if we are talking about this being a step in the long-term goal of 2030 or 5 billion or whatever, we are talking about manufacturing, in which what are we doing? We are trying to give more of, I would say, SOPs to industry in the form of, money. The SOPs don't create production. They permit you to import products in this country. So Samsung has the biggest factory in this country, in the world, in India. But 85% of those products are coming from Korea, Japan, China, etc. And just putting it together. And then I don't know whether we are losing money or gaining money, but the point is we are definitely not indigenizing that technology to make a Make in India.
Dr. Acharya, if I may ask you,
excuse me 1 minute. Now, digitization is good. I must say digitization is very good. But are we looking at what it costs to have a hardware for digitization? We are nowhere in hardware. So the more digitization we have, the more of hardware we'll require, which is really, to be imported. And every 6 months, if a chip is going to be changed, it's going to be increasingly expensive. And then are we talking about power? Digitization requires at least 3% of the total power will go into digitization.
Right.
We haven't talked about power at all in this. Then put it this way, not a word about education in this. We haven't talked about health. We've talked about health. But the point is, look at where the health sector is going. It's 5-star deluxe hospitals where no common person would go. So that's the health sector which is expanding. Are we talking about creating public health institutions? We are not talking about public hospitals at all. And finally, I must say that a lot of high-value persons and companies are leaving this country. I think the numbers you would be knowing better than me. I've heard different numbers. The fact is we are losing foreign exchange to this country. That means the rupee would be losing further and further. Startups. Finally, I would say we are talking about startup. Great thing. But what is a startup? A startup is a new idea to be translated into practice. We are not talking about the same markets. We're not talking about the same education. We are not having startups like China where they're talking about AI, where they're talking about automation or solar energy or anything. We are talking about marketing. We are talking about Baiju's education. These are not startups.
Yeah.
New industries. And finally, the only word I would say is that this 5.9% of I would say fiscal deficit is a highly unrealistic figure. This will definitely jump this figure.
But Dr. Acharya, are you hinting at the fact that the finance minister has not taken into consideration the global recessionary headwinds which we are seeing around the world, and that has not been taken into consideration, and this fiscal target is something which is very, very unrealistic, very much out of the blue? A short comment on that, and then I go to...
Very short, yes. Now, the point is, when does the global recession come into the play? It comes in when you are exporting huge amounts of money, and those economies not growing will not be able to take your imports, right? Imports from here. What are we exporting? What is it in this budget for export? It's all import-oriented budget. We're going to import more and more. So we are actually helping those economies rather than our economy.
Right.
So, I mean...
Yes. Yes. So, Dr. Muni, I'll come to you now, that if the budget has not addressed the immediate concerns, it doesn't address the concerns of the common man, neither of the corporates, neither are we taking into consideration the global headwinds, then what has this budget really achieved today? If I were to look back in the evening and recall this budget, what are those points for which I will recall this budget really?
This budget we would recall for headlines specifically.
Okay.
Because just imagine, after COVID, we all knew that our education sector, where our students didn't go to the universities for 2 years, our education sector needed major boost. Our health sector needed major boost. Interestingly, our health sector, the allocation has come from 2.2% from the previous budget to 1.98%. In education, it has come from 2.64 to 2.51. Interestingly, the rural sector, which really helped our economy be high during the COVID. Do you remember, Neelu? That time, it was the rural sector which pumped up our economy. And the allocation for rural sector came from 5.81% to 5.29%. This is astonishing, and this is hazardous. Interestingly, you remember we talked about doubling the MSP. The government talked about doubling the MSP. They have not done it. They have said nothing over it. They even have not brought down haven't subsidized urea specifically. And interestingly, the talk about 7 lakh rebate, and till 7 lakh there is no tax. If we calculate MPS, ATC, and the tax rebate in the old scheme also, we have got till 7.5 lakhs. There was no tax. If they had to, now one important point, if they really had to empower the common man, they would have enhanced would have increased in the old tax slab rather than in new tax slab. Why? Let me explain. I want to tell you all viewers that if they would have increased in the old tax slab, they would have motivated people for savings, so that in future there will be brighten. But they have motivated people for spending, so that common man go on spending, and who is benefited
Paying
by
tax.
it? We all know. The corporates and the tax, they pay tax. So this is a very vicious circle that has been created specifically in this particular case. And I'm really saddened by the
way. But Doctor, okay, let me go to Siddharth then. From what you're saying, Siddharth, are you able to listen to me? Yeah. So has the government really bitten the bullet? Because in the election year, when you just have few months left for the election, government could have been more prudent or could have been more populist, but it doesn't seem to address neither of the points. So what would you say that what has been really the vision statement behind today's budget?
Well, Neelu, any budget has a context as well as it is a report card, and it has to have some vision. Now, this budget, the context of this budget is the economic survey that came out yesterday. And that is a report card of what happened between the last budget and its deliveries. And one thing that has come out from this year's economic survey is that an Indian household's average savings have come down half compared to pre-COVID times. That means average Indian's saving is down 50%. That is the economic survey saying. Now that also means that there is rising inflation and price rise in India. Now, compared between these two, first let me say that I'll be a bit lenient towards the budget today for the simple reason that a budget, whether a government is in majority or a minority, finance bill is not voted upon, and whatever budget is presented is going to be the economic map for the next year, irrespective of what the government is. So a budget, whatever its merits are or demerits are, it's better that that budget is successful. That is what, otherwise there'll be chaos. So for that sake, I'll say that this budget also takes care of a few issues that obviously Vineet will say after me. He will highlight the positive points of the budget, and I agree there'll be positive points. Now, coming back to what I'm saying, India is 140 crore people. Imagine a neighborhood of 140 people and one hospital catering to that. Now, in that hospital, obviously, there'll be certain patients in wards, certain patients will be in ICU, and certain patients will be getting discharged. Now, imagine on one day, say today, 2 patients get discharged, and the hospital says, okay, since you have gotten well in our hospital, go home and start taking this tonic. Good enough? Now, that is it hiding the fact that there are other 50 people in the ICU? And remember, in an ICU, you do not give them tonics. In ICU, you have to give them medicines. Tonic is for healthy people to stay healthy, and medicine is for a sick person to get healthy. Now, what the BJP has been doing, or this government, this budget has been doing, for example, the tax slab rebate that they have been speaking about, the 5G rollout that they are speaking about, these are the things that are tonics for those people who are already above board. But the fact is also that between COVID and now, 4 crore people have reverse migrated from cities to villages, and that amounts to total 50 crore people in India. Now, with 50 patients in the ICU, 50 crore people who are today rural, workforce, agriculture. When you say rural, that means workforce, physical labor, agriculture, and living in rural areas. So now, just the speaker before me told that the rural budget has come down from 5.8% to 5.3%. What does it say? Unless you are going to take care of your ICU patients, give them proper medicine and discharge them, a hospital cannot pat itself on the back by saying that I have today discharged 2 patients with certain good tonics. I agree that 2 patients have been discharged with good tonics, but 50 people are still inside ICU. And the only way you can ameliorate the problems of these 50 crore people, there are only 2 ways to do that. Either you do direct cash transfer, the way England or France did during the COVID times, or you make sure that the rate of taxes come down. That is the only 2 ways through which you can put money into people's pocket. Now, this has not happened. Why has it not happened? The reason is very simple. Preparation of the budget can happen through 3 perspectives. A government can think, I am making a budget for the government. A government can think, I am making a budget for the industry or the corporates. Or a government can think that I am making a budget for the people of India. I think what has happened is that this government has made a budget considering itself as the focal point. The budget is in profit. The government is running in profit, but it has not given consideration to either the corporates or the industry or the common man. So this is a perspective problem that the government has gone through, I believe so. Having said so, there are certain issues that are good in this budget. And I sincerely feel that any budget that has been presented, it has to pull through, and that because that is going to be our roadmap for the next 1 year. So I wish the budget all the time.
Okay, so now over to Vineet. Vineet, very few people have something very bright and positive to say about today's budget. And you've heard all the pain points. We have been discussing it for the last half an hour. But what I'm wanting to understand from you is that what has Nirmala Sitharaman or what has the Modi government tried to achieve through this budget? The deficiencies in the budget, the structural points, the global deficiencies, wherever, the government had to address, those things have not been addressed, whether it was a common man, whether it was the corporates, whether it was the MSMEs, or what has the government tried to achieve through this budget?
So Ram to you and all my panelists over here and the audience who will be listening to this. Thank you for inviting me. After listening to all the august co-panelists, I felt Bharatiya Janata Party and the ministers of Bharatiya Janata Party don't come from political spectrum. We are genuine people, probably, who does not understand business of politics, or they don't understand budgeting, or we are not realizing that the next year there is election. Thank you for that this budget is not election-oriented populist budget. Let me tell you certain considerations. Last 1 year, or rather last 3-4 years, we have seen global economical challenges. There may be COVID, there may be Russian-Ukraine conflict, that may be the global recession which is going on. Yet, why do corporates come to India and we have seen this inflow of FDI, and why have we seen employment? I'll give you one small example. And these are real numbers, not driven by government, but non-governmental research organizations. The ease of doing business, where the minimum government and maximum governance can be seen, where the transparency is key. 7,496 reforms has been implemented, unprecedented. The number, I repeat, 7,496 reforms. 39,000 compliance has been reduced. Earlier, businessman is to fill a form and meet the inspectors. Now 39,000 total forms have been reduced. 3,500 provisions have been decriminalized. So whoever spoke before me about corporates or businesses not getting anything, please tell me, when you decriminalize the provisions of income tax, the indirect taxes, when you remove 39,000 compliances, do you not allow the businessman, the small entrepreneur, to get into business mode rather than doing the paperwork? So, number two, IMF is not run by Bharatiya Janata Party. Rather, I can very carefully say that they may not be liking us also. But it is factual that what they have projected as a growth rate, US, they have projected it will come down from 1.4 to 1. Whereas they have projected for Japan that it will come down from 1.8 to 0.9. And India is the only country in the top 5 list, which they have projected that it will move from 6.1 to 6.4, which is only one particular economy which has been seen as positive. Now, I really don't know where the figures of the earlier speakers came from. Now, when we have seen the Western economy has been collapsing and the buying powers have reduced, Indian export or any other exports depend, or the exports of our material, which indirectly gets into the Western world, which is facing the challenge of fuel because of the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Their buying powers have come down, but yet we have seen a 16% growth on export with $332 billion export being done. Now, doesn't it speak volume where a country which has faced COVID, which has faced other challenges, the numbers, and these numbers I'm quoting from IMF. I'm not quoting yet the figures of economical survey, or I'm not quoting the figures from Indian the budget right now. With all the challenges, the foreign reserves in December 2022 have gone up to $562 billion. While the government has been feeding 80 crore people post-pandemic. See, the commitment was not to allow a single person to sleep hungry. No other government in the world ever been heard to feed 80 crore mouths every day. That kind of thing. So let me tell you one thing. If you talk about CAD and other things, we can go on and talking about this particular part. One particular part which I like to tell you, what was the growth driver? The growth driver was 63.4% of the increased capital expenditure in the first 8 months of the fiscal. Now that is driving the force. And a simple thing, the service sector, which talks about where a lot of MSMEs work, the middle class get benefited. People like you and I, we come from there. 2021-22, the gross value which was there was 8.4%. Whereas in 2022-23, the gross value has gone up to 9.1%. In the service sector itself, $7.1 billion FDI equity was transacted. Now, please tell me, isn't that a positive thing? Anyway, even if you feel so, we had a great prime minister who said, when I send 100 rupees, people get only 15 rupees. I don't want to quote him. May his soul rest in peace wherever it is. But we took a lesson from that. And we introduced JAM, JAM. And we now know that due to jam, the leakages have been nipped. When we send 100 rupees, the 100 rupees reaches the last beneficiary. A, in the terms of money. B, in the terms of dignity. We all know that when a woman, my sister, would go out for getting the benefits, there were middlemen who may take advantage of her. Now, because of a direct benefit transfer, no woman's dignity has been touched. She has not been subjected to humiliation or any kind of subjected. And this could not be achieved just by saying anything. What we have done is to help this zero leakage of public funds. 83.68 crore internet users were being added, or the total, the number which comes is like that. The infrastructure for JAM basically requires an internet. Right now in India, more than 7.46 active telephone towers are there. Now, this digital power allows the benefit of the democracy to travel like you get it to the last person who is there in the village. Unprecedented 1.32 lakhs. Prime Minister,
let me interrupt you here. The points which you are trying to explain, most of these things were mentioned by Nirmala Sitharaman as well. But what I want to understand from you is, people like P. Chidambaram, they have very clearly pointed out that this budget doesn't have anything for the poor. It has not mentioned the words unemployment, poverty, inequality, or equity anywhere in the speech. Now, why are people trying to decipher the budget in that direction? People are saying that this budget is directionless. Prime Minister says that it's a long-term vision statement for the next 25 years. Of course, the focus has been on laying down more railway lines, building roads. All that is fine for building the nation. But what about the immediate concerns? Unemployment you have not addressed. Economic disparity you have not addressed. From where will the people get employment? What are those vehicles of employment? All that has not been addressed very clearly. So how do you really placate the common man today? They would end up saying that it's just a Jumla budget, or it's just a bundle of promises which will never be delivered, apparently.
So my earlier speakers asked me total 32 questions, and now in your second phase of asking me question, you've asked me 8 questions. The total 40 questions been asked. You also quoted a great economist, P. Chidambaram, who has been tried and has been investigated by a lot of agencies and probably the court also. And because of his populist budgets, India lost a lot of money, and also the government of then government lost themselves in the election. So let me not compare about him, and let me go back to the realities. We understand people, and
but what he's pointing out, can you dismiss that?
Of course. So if you allow me to speak, I'll dismiss that.
Yes.
So whatever he may speak, but we have to build this country, and we have built it this country. If you can ask that gentleman whose name you took, how many kilometers of highways he has created. We created 1,44,634 kilometers of highway. Ma'am, you would know that civilizations in the earlier eras were next to the banks of river, and now they are next to the roads. So please travel with me across the country. You don't have to worry. Your car can drive more than 100 kilometers per hour, and you can reach each and every corner of the country because of the road network.
I'll come to Dr. Verma after this. Yes, for a quick response. Yes, go ahead, Vineet. Go ahead. And then Dr. Sarthi. Yes.
I like when you interrupt, because that gives me a opportunity to think and to give you more pointers. Thank you for interrupting me again and again. It helps me to allow me to think. Somebody pointed out that jobs have gone down. Let me remind the gentleman, EPFO, the Provident Fund Office, releases the number of people who are paid PF. That is the organized sector, the people who PF.
Right.
It is doubled to 27 crore. Madam, nobody pays PF on behalf of you if they don't employ you. Only they pay your PF when they employ you. Now, these are the real figures, which Chidambaram may not understand probably. The unorganized sector, which is there, which may not pay PF, 28.5 crore workers have registered on e-Shram portal. They don't register, and the employer will not allow them to register without there. Somebody also talked about, farmers' income. Animal husbandry in the last 5 years for better milk and meat. I had never thought that in this country, which was always seen as to be an agriculture country, in decades and decades, I have never seen 2,316 crore rupees been allocated. 8 crore farmers have been benefited. The list of this can be procured by you by filing an RTA. 8 crore farmers. I'll give you one simple example. If you don't have good breed animals, you will never have good milk, quantity of milk, neither you will have meat of the animals which you have, maybe goat or piggery or anything else. 19 IVF-led establishments, they have been done in India. Now, this IVF will help farmers to have a better breed animals, be it be camel, be it be cow, be it be goat, be it be. And 2 Rashtriya Kamdhenu Prajanan Kendras have been established. Nobody thought about having an alternate income to a farmer. This is the first time. Women has been an essential element in the agricultural sector or the rural sector or even in the urban poor. 81 lakh self-help groups have been doing business and they have been given loans under Mudra loan. You can procure the list in case you want to read. These people who are working in an unorganized sector, ready patri walas, thela walas, or people like you and me who may be singly working in one-man company, two-man company, that did not have pension, they were worried about their future. Atal Pension Yojana allows a person, a citizen, to register inside it between 18 to 40 years of his age, and he gets benefited when he is of 60 years. See, the number of people is 5 crore. So 3 things. I talked to you about EPFO numbers. Can you deny that? Can you deny the unorganized workers who have been registered?
Okay, so
Let me go ahead. Let me go ahead. So I have been listening for 35 minutes. Political statement. And let me give you the real figure. Now, let me talk to the corporate part. The production link incentive scheme, which has unlocked the manufacturing in this country. Ma'am, 3 lakh employment has been generated. More than 100 MSMEs are there which have benefited in fiscal year 22 itself. There has been an investment of more than 47,500 crore rupees, man. Now, do you want to say that?
Niluji, we are again
one
hearing the budget
yes.
from the.
No, Vineet, let me get in a response. No, you've already mentioned a lot of things. Let me get in a quick response. We have time on hand now.
Madam, I was asked 40 questions.
I'm really sorry. Let me go to the other panelists also.
But
yes.
We have already got the soft copy. We will read it about all this.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Ashutosh. Yes, go ahead.
So Niluji,
go to all the panelists. Very little time on hand. Yes.
As Mr. Vineet has explained all the things, but I'm very amazed that he was talking about the roads, and he's saying that the initial civilization was around the river. Now the civilization is against the around the roads. But not a single point budget has been increased about the expressway in the Uttar Pradesh. Not a single penny has you increased. This was very surprising. You are giving the clarification. You are giving the clarification of the development. Not a single penny has been given to the smart cities. What about the smart cities, the dream project of Pradhan Mantri ji? And you are talking about the alternate income. I'm sorry, Mr. Vineet. This is just like you are skipping the main medicine and you are giving the alternate medicine. This is how you are seeing the Indian. No, just if this is about the Atmanirbhar, why the unemployment rate is 8.3%, the highest ever till now? Why? And why it is the lowest level of lower labor production rate in the India? This is actually, you have no vision to create a job. You have no plan to tackle the inflation. You have no plan to stabilize and decrease the inequality. Because 1%, now in India, it is very shocking. And the economic survey has given it is very shocking. And the world should know that 1% richest population of the India own 40% of the wealth, and 50% of the poor India pay 64% of GST. And your finance minister, our finance minister, has not spoken a single word on the GST. This is hazardous. This is a poor vision.
Okay, let me go to Dr. Acharya. Yes, Dr. Acharya, go ahead. You just heard what Vineet is saying.
Very quickly, I wanted to tell you that the esteemed BJP spokesperson talked about a lot of inputs that we benefited so many people. We reached out. I'm interested in outcomes. What has been the outcome? And the outcome has already been talked about in terms of inequality, etc. So let's not quote input figures to show your success. It has to be outcome figures to show the success. The second point I wanted to say is very quickly that certain figures have been going up, like suddenly we are seeing that the total foreign exchange is going up, but at the same time, a lot of foreign exchange is going outside the country also in terms of people leaving. So what is actually happening is that money which is going up in the country is because of the borrowing. And the money which is going out is our own money, so we're getting increasingly indebted. This is a problematic situation. So unless we go inside what is the exact amount, we have a serious problem. And my last point is to quote from Shakespeare, that 7 crowns for thy glory, death for thy ambition. The point is, nobody is saying that you haven't built roads and railways and ports. What one is saying is there is unemployment, there is poverty, there is inequality. We cannot forget
Absolutely.
that.
Those are the larger questions. Exactly. I'll come to you, Vineet. I'll give you time. Don't worry. Dr. Muni, you want to respond to what Vineet has just said? He laid out a big plan as to what all the government has done so far, how the pain points have been addressed. You want to say something? A quick response?
Neelu, I'll just take a couple of minutes only. Interesting. The government, Vinny ji is a good colleague. The government is through national education policy. Do you remember that national education policy is such a good policy Indian government has brought? And through the national education policy, the government says the national education policy says that the government should spend 6% of the budget on education. Interestingly, the government has brought down the budget from 2.6% to 2.5%. आधा भी नहीं देते और बात करते हैं युवा को डेवलप करने का. दूसरा point, second point, in 2014, the country was in debt of 53 lakh crore. In 2022, it went back to 150 lakh crore. And after this budget, the fiscal deficit and loan on Indian exchequer will be 165 lakh crore. This is all clear facts, no politics. Third point, we have talked about bullet train. We talked about, किसानों की आय दुगनी करेंगे. We talked about 60 lakh job opportunities. Interestingly, they are not on ground. Last point, we need a huge project. Just starting 4 projects will not do it. Interestingly, we have to do much more than what is promised by the Bharatiya Janata Party union budget.
Okay, Siddharth, what do you really have to say on what Vineet explained as to what all the government has planned and on its larger objectives? Yes.
Yeah, Neelu, I don't need to say anything. The viewers would have seen that when Vineet was speaking about the government's goals in this budget, he was speaking about infrastructure. Please remember, infrastructure is government property. So he has only reinforced what I was saying, that this budget was prepared just to keep the Sarkar in mind. Neither the corporates were an entity. Rather than being a magnanimous budget, it was a myopic budget where the budget maker was only concerned about how to make sure that the Sarkar is running in Faida. It was not considering
the budget for making the government richer, you mean to say?
Pardon me?
You mean to say that the budget is for making the government richer at the cost of the poor?
Exactly. And that is why when the BJP spokesperson was speaking, he was speaking a lot about infrastructure projects. But the point is, unless you invest in people, there is an investment in infrastructure and there is an investment in people. With people's savings coming down, unless you put money into the people's pockets through some medium, this budget is not going to work. Yet, I wholeheartedly feel that whatever budget has come, we have to make sure that this budget is a success, because that is where everyone's good lies in.
Okay, so now I'll go to Vineet again, and then after that, I'll come back to all the panelists for rating the budget on a scale of 10. Yes, Vineet. Go ahead.
So I was not going to make any political statement because there was a couple of political statements. I remember one Hindi line which was taught to me when I was taking baby steps in politics. Somebody senior said, अगर विरोधकों के मुंह पर चिंता और भड़ास दिखे तो मान लीजिए आपने सही काम किया है. तो मुझे अच्छा लग रहा है आज कि हमने शायद सही काम किया है.
Okay.
See, I spoke about the EPFO number. I spoke about the e-Shram card. I spoke about the people who have participated in the Atal pension. Now, these are the real people, citizens. Unfortunately, my earlier panelists do not consider them as to be real citizens of this country. But anyway, let me give you one more example. Shamefully,
be very brief, Vineet. Yes. Yeah.
I can stop also because the budget.
No, don't stop. You give your answer. I said just be brief.
Yeah. In case you want me to stop and listen to others, I am very happy. As I said, विरोधकों के मुंह पर जब मुझे चिंता दिखती है और भड़ास दिखती है तो बड़ा सुकून मिलता है. So मैं रुक सकता हूँ. मुझे कोई, and you would have seen I had my smile.
Go ahead.
And I don't get disturbed because I remember my points very clearly. Siddharth knows me that whenever there is a debate, I keep my calm and I continue to contribute my points. See, roti, kapda, and makan, as per the Maslow's hierarchy of need, was the basic physiological need we needed, which has been taught. it has been talked by socialists, it has been talked by the Congress. But did we ever see a 66% increase, which amounts to 79,000 crores has been invested in PM Awas? The number of people who have got Pakka Makan the keys, you deny whatever you want to deny. Those people know that they have got the house. Let me talk to you one more thing.
Allocations have dropped, Vineet. PM Awas allocations have dropped by 12% from 90,000 crore to 79.5 crore.
पहले घर दे दिए तो अभी जरूरतें कम हुई है. So let me tell you. You being
Okay.
so I let me tell you one more thing. When total 11.7 crore toilets been allocated and been built, I'll tell you, this is beyond the budget which my earlier speakers would have ever understood. The pain of a woman going out in open defecation.
No, I understand
so
what
that
you're
is the budget. Let me complete. Let me complete.
No. Just answer this question as to why these allocations have dropped. PM Awas Yojana, I gave you the drop by 12%. Manrega has dropped from 98.4 thousand crores to 60,000 crores. Food subsidy has dropped from 91,619 crores to 1.97 lakh crores. So what exactly Siddharth was saying that you're not investing in the people?
Unlike so please have a little heart to hear the real reasons. You ask me a question, I'm trying to give you the answer. Allocations of budgets are given on the real estimates and the needs, not because to satisfy people like you to say that every budget allocation has been increased. Where will you bring the money from? So you have to be rational and truthful. The need for Manrega was because there was a need there. Today the need is to give toilets, so we are building toilet, and the money goes there. Cylinders which have been given to women at the home.
I'm really running short of time, Akash. Yeah. Just let Vineet complete his point. Yes, Vineet, go ahead.
Ma'am, 9.64 crore cylinders have been given to women. Will that not help them to save time and the pain of going to the jungle, getting hurt, or maybe been teased, or maybe been there have been unlawful things which have been happening when they go to collect goods. So this also reduces the need. When you have already allocated cylinder, when you have already allocated toilet, the need for PM Awas will change, of course. And one more thing, agricultural credit target which has gone up to 20 lakh crore rupees, will that not help the farmer? Let me also tell you one more thing. 157 new nursing colleges will be established. Now that will help young girls who may not become a medical doctor, but will become a paramedic. Fisheries, which is also one way of doing a farming on the water, 6,000 crore has been allocated. Will not that help? So basically, the power and the benefits of the democracy have reached the last man there. The panelists who have spoken before me,
undoubtedly, Vineet, undoubtedly. The government has been, I'm really running short of time. I'm really running short of time, Vineet, now, because there are other lives also lined up. But the government has been high on promising, but low on delivery, low on implementation. Now, I'll come back to all the panelists for quick 1 second answer. Dr. Ashutosh, on a scale of 10, how would you rate the budget?
So I will budget it a lot more than 5. It's a only political, visionless budget for us.
Okay, 5 on 10. Dr. Sarthi Acharya, how would you rate
5
the budget?
on 10.
Pardon?
5 on 10.
5 on 10. Dr. Muni?
5 on 10.
5 on 10. Okay, Siddharth?
जब पेशेंट आईसीयू में हो तो उसको आप टॉनिक दे रहे हैं, कम से कम आपने जहर नहीं दिया, टॉनिक दिया, उसको दवाई की जरूरत थी, फिर भी आपने टॉनिक दे दिया, इसलिए 5 नंबर तो मिलना ही मिलना है.
Okay, Vineet, last word to you. Few seconds, 40 seconds to you, Vineet, and I end the show. Yes.
As I said, when my opponents give 5 out of 10, it means that I've got more than 15.
I'm not your opponent. I'm not your opponent. I'm one of your. I've been very lenient.
Okay.
Okay, my brother, sir.
Okay, so 5 on 10.
5 out of 10.
I'm really running short of
Nobody is an
time.
enemy. We are all trying
On
to
a
be.
scale of 10.
Sir, I've never used the word enemy, sir. You're like, sir, I've been watching you since my
On a scale
childhood.
of
When I was
10, the
toddler,
budget
sir.
has been rated as 5, so which means that it's not a bad budget, but yes, a lot of improvements are needed, but it's a mix of populism and prudence both. But in the days to come, of course, the budget will be dissected. It will be analyzed further. More and more economists are going to speak about it. So we'll have to look for the far bigger headlines in tomorrow's newspaper. And then probably we'll have more discussions on this. Thank you so much, Vineet Goenka, Siddharth Sharma, Dr. Sarthi Acharya, Dr. Akash Muni, Dr. Verma. Thank you.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more interesting updates.